Let's just take a general look at the way in which we might manipulate our vertex colours of a given object. So for example, we've got this smooth monkey head here at the moment, this Blender's Suzanne, and if we just tab into edit mode, we can see the density there. Should give us plenty of vertices to work with. In fact, we can see at the top here there's nearly 8,000 vertices. So all we need to do to start manipulating the vertex colours is just to come down here to the mode menu in the 3D view and just switch that to vertex paint, and we can see the shading completely changes on the monkey there, and also we get the tool shelf has completely changed. At the top here we have some brushes that we can switch between, and then we've also got our colour wheel here and some values that we can key in. We've got the radius and strength and some other general painting tools. In fact, we can see in the 3D view we get this red circle denoting the radius of the brush there. So if we can I'm just going to drag on the colour wheel there and just switch it to this blue, and then just left click on the object, and we can see we've started to paint on the vertices there, and it's as simple as that. So the vertex painting mode is kind of the default method within Blender, but we can just do a flood selection, which we can do down here in the paint menu. We can just set the vertex colours to the currently selected colour. If we didn't want to just flood the entire object, what we can do is we can actually use a face masking mode. So if we just switch that on now and then bring us back into edit mode, I'm actually just going to select, say, those 4 faces, for example, just come back to the vertex painting mode, and now just switch it to red, say, for example, and then again just go paint, set vertex colors. We can see it's only affected those faces, and now we can just switch that off, and we can see we've got a very particular area that is has been painted now. Something else that we can do is just, as we can see here, we don't have a vertex face mode, so what we might do is basically use that face selection mode to get a fine control on particular edges. So for example, if we just switch back to edit mode and just grab let's grab maybe those 3 faces there, and then switch back to vertex paint mode and put the face selection on, we can see it's highlighted the currently selected faces there. Just going to press the shortcut key F to just reduce the radius of the brush there slightly, and if I just come in here, we can get really fine control over just this half of the colours of this vertex here, so the individual vertices that are contained within. And then I can turn that mode off, and we can see we've basically got some fine control over that area. So those are a couple of ways in which we might be able to manipulate the vertex colours quite basically. To view what we're working with in terms of colour sets, what we can do is we can come over to the Object Data panel, this tab here in the Properties window, and we can see there is a section called Vertex Colours down here, and it's given us this col, and we can rename it here, or we can add additionals or subtract it. So if we just add another one, and it's by default called it col.001, and just bring in this sort of a yellow colour and start to paint, we can see we're essentially just painting over the existing vertices there. But what we can do now is obviously just remove that vertex colour set, and we can see it's the underneath vertices, the colours remain. So we that's just some basic ways in which we might manipulate the colour sets there, basically. Something else to note here is we can also kind of do a batch bake, a kind of an ambient occlusion bake into the vertices, and to perform that I'm just going to switch that back to a white, just take this to 1, all those to 1, and then what we can do is we can just go to paint and then set vertex colors, so we can see that's just flooded it white again. So to do an ambient occlusion bake into the vertices, what it's called in Blender is dirty vertex colors for some reason. So what we just click on that there, and we can see that's taken effect. It's kind of given it a bit of an occlusion bake, so many of the sections which you might expect to be in a kind of a natural sort of a shadow, we can see that that's all the recessed and slightly occluded areas are darker. So we can see that that's basically giving us this kind of a look. If we just have a look in the bottom of the tool shelf though, we can see there's some other settings in here. We can change our blur iterations, so we can reduce that down. We can see that that's taken a mild effect in this case. We could just just show the dirt only, so it's just going to show the darkened areas there. We've got other settings that we can change there within the angles and so on. So those we can obviously just then go ahead and then duplicate that action and then repeat the move a few times to get some different kinds of results as well. And then of course we can just then start painting on top of this. Potentially we might want to add another color set before we started to paint. So if I just flood this particular object with a near white again, just go paint and set vertex colors. Potentially this isn't the kind of shading that you might want to work with initially. Just to get a kind of a more natural shading look, what we could do is we can switch to a textured mode. And then if we were to start painting, let's just paint black, we'll notice that not much is happening in the 3D view. What we would need to do is just add a material. So if I just come over to the materials tab of the properties window, click new, and now come down to the very bottom, we've got options down here, and we can just select vertex color paint, and we can see now that black area I just painted is now showing up. It's maybe not showing up in quite the right way because we've got this specular highlight getting in the way there, so we can just reduce the specularity right down, and we can see we get quite a flat view of the various colors, and we can continue to paint. Incidentally, at the moment what I've got in the scene is just these 8 lamps in the scene, just basically parented to this monkey, so depending on where we move it, we can just move the lamps around. We can see in the outliner here that all those lamps are indeed parented underneath the monkey. So that's just something I thought I'd point out. But basically we can then switch between a kind of a solid view and without the vertex colors and just a texture, and it will show us the vertex colors in the 3D view. Or we could switch to the vertex paint mode and then switch between those 2 particular modes there. So those are some basic ways in which we can work with vertex coloring in Blender.